Hi friends, now in this slide we are going to see Cascading Style Sheet. What is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. It is a style sheet language which is used to describe the look and formatting of a document written in markup language. It provides an additional feature to HTML. It is generally used with HTML to change the style of the web pages and the user interface. What is CSS? It can also be used with any kind of XML documents including plain XML, SVG and XUL. CSS is used along with the HTML and JavaScript in most websites to create user interface for web application and user interface for many application programs to used in the mobile application. Why use CSS? It can be used to solve the big problem. Before, CSS tag like font, color, background style, element alignments, border and size had to be repeat on every web page. This was a very long process. It can be used to save a lot of time that it can be or saved in the external CSS. So it is possible to change the entire website by changing just one file. Provide more attributes. It provides more detailed attribute that plain HTML to define the look and feel of the website. CSS syntax. It having the set of rules contains the selector and the declaration block. Selector. Selector indicates the HTML element you want to style. It could be any tag like h1, title, etc. Next, declaration block. The declaration block can contain one or more declaration separated by the semicolon. Property. A property is the type of attributes of HTML element. It could be color, border, etc. Next, we are going to see about value. The values are assigned to the CSS properties. In the above example, value yellow is assigned to color property. H1. This is used like this is a good example for the CSS. H1 is the selector. Okay. From this selector, we can use to declare the some properties. That means color yellow. My font size is 11 pixel. CSS selector. CSS selector are used to select the content you want to style. Selector are the part of CSS rules and the CSS selectors that select the HTML element according to its ID, class, type, attribute, etc. There are several different types of selector. CSS element selector, CSS ID selector, CSS class selector, CSS universal selector, CSS group selector. Types of selectors in CSS. CSS element selector. The element selector selects some HTML element by name. Then ID selector. The ID selector selects the ID attributes of an HTML element to select a specific element. An ID is always unique within the page, so it is chosen to select a single and unique element. It is written with the hashed character. Types of selector. Third one is CSS class selector. It selects the HTML element with a specific class attribute. It is used with the period character. Next, universal selector. The universal selector is used as the wildcard character. It selects all the elements on the pages. Next, group selector. The grouping selector is used to select all the elements with the same style definition. Grouping selector is used to minimize the code. Commas are used to separate each selector in grouping. Next, in this slide, now we are going to see about the CSS position element. The CSS position property is used to set the position of an element. It is also used to place an element behind another and also useful for scripted animation effect. You can position an element with the using the top, bottom, left and right properties. These properties can be used to only after position property is set first. A position elements computed the position property is relative, absolute, fixed, and strictly. Types of position element: static positioning, fixed positioning, relative positioning, and absolute positioning. CSS static position. This is a default position for HTML element. It always position an element according to the normal flow of the page. It is not affected by the top, bottom, left and right properties. The second one is fixed position. The fixed position property helps to put the text fixed on the browser. This fixed text is position relative to the browser window and doesn't move when you scroll the window. The third one is relative position. The relative position property is used to set the element relative to its normal position. The fourth one is absolute position. The absolute position is used to position an element relative to the first parent element that has a position other than the static. If no such element is found that containing the block is HTML, with the absolute positioning, you can place an element anywhere on a page. Next, box shadow CSS. It is used to add the shadow-like effects around the frame of an element. Syntax: box shadow, H offset V. Offset is the blur spreading color. Box shadow, V offset. Unlike the H offset, it is used to set the shadow position vertically. The positive value in it sets a shadow below the box and the negative value sets a shadow above the box. Blur. Its name implies that is, it is used to blur the box shadow. This attribute is optional. Spread. It sets a shadow size. The spread size depends upon the spread value. Color. As its name implies, this attribute is used to color for the shadow. It is an optional attribute. Insert. Normally the shadow generates outside the box, but by using the insert, the shadow can be created within the box. Initial. It is used to set the property of the box shadow to its default value. Inherit. It is inherited from its parent. None. It is the default value that does not include any shadow property. This is the example for the glow effect, which are going to display the shadow as in the different types of styles we are going to use in the CSS. The CSS box model. An HTML element can be considered as boxes. In CSS, the term box model is used when talking about the design and layout. The CSS box model is essentially a box that wraps around every HTML element. It consists of the margin, border, padding and actual content. First, we are going to display the content in the window. Next, we have to place the padding. We should select the border and margin to the left, right and body top direction. Different parts in the box model. Content. The content of the box where text and images appear. Padding. Clears an area around the content. The padding is transparent. Border. A border that goes around the padding and content. Margin. Clears an area outside the border. The margin is transparent. Next, text effect. We can apply the different effects on the text using within an HTML document. Some properties can be used for adding the effects on text. Using the CSS, we can style the web documents and affect the text. What are the text effect properties that we are going to see in the CSS? Word break, text overflow, word wrap and writing mode. Word break. It specifies how words should break at the end of the line. It defines the line break rules. Syntax: word break, normal, keep all, break all and inherit. The default value of this property is normal. So this value is automatically used when we don't specify any value. Word break. Values: keep all. It breaks the word in the default style. break all. It insert the word break between the characters in order to prevent the word overflow. Word wrap. CSS word wrap property is used to break the long words and wrap onto the next line. This property is used to prevent the overflow when an unbreakable string is too long to fit in the containing the box. Syntax. Word wrap normal, break word and inherit. Word wrap values normal. This property is used to break the words only at allowed the breakpoints. Break word. It is used to break unbreakable words. Initial. It is used to set this property to its default value. Inherit. It inherits the property from its parent element. Text overflow. It specifies the representation of overflowed text which is not visible to the user. It signals the user about the content that is not visible. These properties help us to decide where the text should be clipped on show some dots ellipse. These properties does not work on its own. We have to use white space, now wrap and overflow hidden with this property. Text overflow. Syntax. Text overflow clip ellipse. Property values. Clip. It is the default value that clips the overflowed text. Ellipse. These values display an ellipse or three dots to show the clipped text. It is displayed within the area decreasing the amount of text. Writing mode. It specifies where the text will be written in the horizontal or vertical direction. If the writing direction is vertical, then it can be from left to right, vertical LR, or from right to left, vertical R. Syntax. Writing mode. Horizontal DP, vertical LR, vertical RL and inherit. Next, writing mode in the properties value. Horizontal DP. It is the default value of this property in which the text is the horizontal direction and read from left to right and top to bottom. Vertical RL. It displays the text in the vertical direction and the text is read from right to left and top to bottom. Vertical LR. It is displayed the vertical RL but the text is read from left to right. CSS text align. These CSS properties used to set the horizontal alignment of your table, cell, box or the block element. It is similar to the vertical align property but in the horizontal direction. Syntax for the text alignment is justify, center, right, left, initial and inherit. Text alignment. Some possible values you have to assign for our CSS cascading style sheet to design our text wrapper. Justify. It is generally used in the newspaper and magazine. It stretches the element content in order to display the equal width of the every line. Center. It centers the inline text. Right. It is used to align the text to the right. Left. It is used to align the text to the left. Media query. CSS media query is the W3C recommendation and a CSS3 model which is used to adapt to condition to the screen solution. Example, smartphone screen with computer screen. The media query technique first used in the CSS3. It became a W3C recommendation in June 2012. Media query. It is an extension of media dependent style sheet used in the different media types found in CSS2. The most commonly used media feature is width. It uses a media rule to include a block of CSS properties only if a certain condition is true. Drop-down menus. You can create drop-down navigations by making the small changes in markup. You have to add the class name pure menu has children to the appropriate menu to create a drop-down menu. To display the submenu on hover, include the subclass name pure menu hello hover. Text shadow. It accepts all the commas separated of shadows that apply to the text. Its default property is none. It applies one or more than one text shadow effects on the element's text content. Syntax. Text shadow, H shadow, V shadow, blur, radius color, run, initial, inherit. Some properties value. H shadow. It is required value. It specifies the position of horizontal shadow and allows the negative values. V shadow. It is also required the value that specifies the position of the vertical shadow. It does not allow the negative values. Blur radius. It is the blur radius which is an optional value. Its default value is 0. Color. It is the color of the shadow and also the optional value. None. It is the default value which means no shadow. Initial. It is used to set the property to its default value. Inherit. It simply inherits the property from its parent command. Border radius property. CSS property set the rounded borders and provides the rounded corners around an element, stacks or divide. It defines the radius of an corners of an element. It is a shorthand for border top left radius, border top right radius, border bottom right radius and border bottom left radius. Border radius property. It gives the rounded shape to the corners of the border of an element. We can specify the border for all four corners of the box. It's a single declaration using the border radius. The value of this property can be defined in percentage or length units. Border radius property. Syntax. Border radius is defined by the 1.4 length percentage, 1 to 4 length percentage, inherit and initial. Property values. Length. And define the shape of the corners. It denotes the size of the radius using the length values. Its default value is 0. It does not allow the negative values. Percentage. It allows the size of the radius in percentage. It does not allow negative values. These are the properties. These are the properties which we are going to use for the borders. CSS colors. The color property in CSS is used to set the color of HTML elements. Typically, this property is used to set the background color or the font color of an element. In CSS, we use the color values for specifying the color. We can also use this property for the border color and other decorative effects. Types of color format. RGB format, RGBA format, hexadecimal notation, HSL, HSLA, built-in color. RGB format. This format is a short form of red, green and blue. It is used for defining the color of an HTML element simply by specifying the values of RGB that are in the range from 0 to 255. The color values in this format are specified by using the RGB property. This property allows the three values that can be either be percentage or integer, range from 0 to 255. RGBA format. It is almost similar to the RGB format, except the RGBA contains the alpha that specifies the elements in the transparency condition. The value of the alpha in the range 0.0 to 1.0, in which 0.0 is for fully transparent and 1.0 is not transparent. Hexadecimal notation. The hexadecimal notation can be defined as a 6-digit color representation. These notations start with the # symbol followed by the 6-character ranges from 0 to F. In hexadecimal notation, the first 2 digits represent the red RR color value, the next 2 digits represent the green GG color value, and the last 2 digits represent the blue BB color value. The hexadecimal notation. The black color notation in HTML is #60 and the white color notation in hexadecimal is #6F. Some of these codes in hexadecimal notation are #FF40, #00FF00, #400000FF, #FFF00 and many more. Short hexa codes. It is a short form of hexadecimal notations in which every digit is recreated to achieve the equivalent hexadecimal value. For example, FB6 becomes F77BB66 in hexadecimal. The black color notation in short is ash 30 000 and white color notation is short x ash FFF. Some of these codes are short as are ash F00 ash 0F0 ash 0FF ash FF0 and many more. HSL. It is the short form of hue, saturation and the lightness. Syntax color. HSL is HSL. It can be defined as the degree on the color wheel from 0 to 360. 0 represent the red, 120 represent the green and 240 represent the blue. HSL saturations. It takes the value in the percentage in which 100% represent the fully saturated, that is no shadows of grey. 50% represent the 50% grey but the color is still visible. The 0% represent the fully unsaturated, that is completely grey and color is invisible. HSL lightness. The lightness of the color can be defined as the light that we want to provide the color in which 0% black, there is no light. 50% represent neither dark nor light and 100% represent the white full lightness. HSLA. It is the entirely similar to the HSL property except that it contains A alpha that specify the element transparency. The value of the alpha is in the range from 0.0 to 1.0 in which 0.0 indicates the fully transparent and 1.0 indicates the not transparent. Built-in color. As its name implies, built-in colors means the collection of previously defined color that are used by the name as red, green and blue. Thank you to listen my PPT presentation. Thank you everyone.